Hello and welcome everybody to this XTB live news. My name is Walid Koudmani, market analyst for XTB. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the main events happening in the markets in this final trading session of the week, Friday, the 28th of May. And we're going to be talking about what to keep an eye on from the economic calendar, what's been happening. Take a look at the charts to see some major moves and some key levels to keep an eye on. So as far as the economic calendar and what's been happening in the first part of the session, we've had an interesting start with both some moves in the indices and commodities. The favored inflation reading by the Fed, so the US Central Bank, was released today, and it was actually above expectations. That is the US core PCE. And it's important because that could impact the policy of the central bank. And as we've seen, even indications of change in policy from the central banks have had certain effects on the markets, quite significant actually. So today was the CPI and PCE data day. We're still expecting the revised University of Michigan consumer sentiment. So that is also important because it gives us an idea of the consumer sentiment in the economy, as well as the inflation expectations. So inflation day today. Inflation has been a key topic lately. We even discussed it yesterday in the trading club. So if you missed that, feel free to watch the video on YouTube. It's going to be at the end of this video as well. You can check it out. We talked about inflation and other things affecting commodities and other markets. But today was inflation day, and as I said, US inflation was above expectations. So it's going to be interesting to see how the central banks react to this and how the markets have reacted. So if we go and take a look at the markets on the charts, let's start with the DAX. DAX, another positive day. So far, approaching all-time highs once again. And we can see that because the DAX is actually just 0.4% from its all-time high. As you can see, after dropping to a low of about 1.67, 1.7% from the all-time high. We have had this recovery, and even after testing this area, is now above all the moving averages, as you can see, testing all of them as support potential. If we go and see the US indices, so NASDAQ, similar situation before the start, consolidating above this level that we mentioned. This area acted as a resistance in the past, you can see, and then as a support here. So a lot of price or a lot of reactions. This is going to be interesting to see how the index, and in fact all indices, will be closing the week. But as I said, testing key level, and also in a very narrow range between about 3%. So you can see that as well on the 4-hour range. If we go and break it down on the 1 hour, even closer, we can see between 13,620 and 13,730. You can see starting the day potentially with an upward move, but you can see that this is a key level to keep an eye on. Commodities, or actually let's take a look at the S&P as well. S&P, I like to mention this, but it is moving also upward like the NASDAQ, but it is closer to its all-time high usually, and we've talked about this in the past. You can see 0.65%, while the NASDAQ US 100 is about over 2.25% or 2.24% from its all-time high. So you can see both of them recovering, but this one, the index, the US index, at a slightly slower pace. The RSI around 65 around 65, but you can see that it's moving up and down quite significantly. If we take a look at gold, gold now once again testing the 1900 level, which also coincides with the upper limit of the Ichimoku cloud. And this area has been very important in the past. Obviously, 1900 is psychological area, psychological level as they call them. And you can see that the lower end has been trading in a quite narrow range as well, because it's tested this 1887, 1888 level several times, only dropping to about 1881 briefly on the hourly, of course this is. And now it is testing the upper limit of the Ichimoku cloud, along with all these other reasons that make this area important. So it's going to be interesting. But it did break through it in the past. So we saw that it did manage to break the upward move, continue, and then reach a high of 1912, which coincides roughly with this, you can see, upward trend line, and tested it and then pulled back into the Ichimoku cloud as well. Oil, on the other hand, similar situation to gold, also testing very high levels, and you can see that now breaking previous resistance once again, but still pulling back and retesting it. So as I mentioned, many markets now have been moving sideways, but at key levels. So either way, it's quite important because they have been tested in the past, so any further test could be important as well. Oil, Brent oil, on the other hand, let's see, similar moves to WTI, very close from the 70 mark, but once again, attempting the upward move and then running into resistance, but not at the highest level that we've seen yet. So we've seen previous price reactions as well, consolidation here. It looked similar to these moves as well, but remains above the Ichimoku cloud, so that's important as well to keep an eye on. I'll briefly touch on Bitcoin as well. As I mentioned, Bitcoin pulling back again. You can see how many red days for Bitcoin. And if we actually take a look at other currencies, let's take a look at it on the market analysis section of the platform. We can see that the US dollar is actually one of the better performing currencies today after having such negative performance for so long, and I'll show you on the US dollar index as well. Euro is mixed, pound is also mixed, franc, New Zealand dollar are quite negative, Canadian dollar is positive, and yen is mostly positive as well. If we take a look at the US dollar index, we can see that on the daily, after reaching the lowest level in quite some time, it has actually managed to recover slightly. And if we look at the pairs, we can see that on the pound USD, so cable, after reaching 142, we can see that this area has been tested several times on the 3rd. It also pulled back once again and is now testing the Ichimoku cloud, dropping below the moving average and trading around 141.5. So still above the 141 area. You can see that this range has been holding for quite some time, so about 10 days, and but trading up and down in it so far. While the Euro USD with the overlaid US dollar index chart, you can see that as the Euro is pulling back, we see an upward move of the dollar as well. So now we're seeing a similar situation after Euro USD reached a high of 122.6. We can see that it ended up pulling back, dropping below the range, which had been holding for quite some time as well. Similar situation to the pound, but actually dropping below the range. Now, after dropping to the next level, which is around here, 121.2, it rebounded and is now heading or attempting to test this area as a resistance this time. So all of these are markets that are worth keeping an eye on. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it and hope you have a good weekend. If you missed yesterday's trading club, you can find it on YouTube. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thank you very much and good luck with your trading.